this is what the follow-up is, then you are in a trouble because he or she is not going to listen to any of it. Do not ever let that desperation of your career get into the deal. Your buyer should never feel that he or she is the only prospect that is left in the deal. As we have discussed in the past, the importance of follow-up. Now, what we have to understand is things to avoid in follow-ups. While you're following up with your prospect or with your buyer, you have to understand there are certain things that you must avoid. First thing is desperation. Desperation in follow-up is basically the number one enemy in every possible deal that you can imagine. The moment your prospect or your buyer smells desperation, they take a step back. They will never ever entertain someone who is desperate and who's itching to close a deal because it gives us very simple and straight signal that there is something wrong with the product, or this sales individual or professional is left with only one prospect. So desperation in sales is the number one enemy. Avoid desperation. Second is the frequency of follow-ups. If you call your buyer every day or you message your buyer every day, it again gives a signal or gives a very negative message that the entire organization is heavily dependent on that one buyer. Avoid it. You as a salesman must project yourself as someone who is busy, who is working really hard, and you are clouded with n number of buyers and prospects as a sales professional or individual. So avoiding frequencies, like what should be the exact frequency? 6 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 4 days a week. The precise and the most appropriate number of follow-ups or appropriate number of follow-up that you should be doing in a week is one or maximum two. But that also heavily depends on how do you really do it. Your your value addition to every follow-up, your piece of information that you are trying to share with your prospect every time you are following up, it really adds up to the frequency. If you are someone who value yourself as a sales professional a lot, you have set philosophies and you think that I will only follow with my buyer or prospect if I have something relevant to share or some information that can help the buyer come to a point where he or she can make a decision, then only you should be following up. Following up just for saying, oh, sir, well, we had to proceed. Well, you told me that you need a day. Well, uh, you said that we can, move ahead. If this is what the follow up is, then you are in a trouble because he or she is not going to listen to any of it because the entire win in this scenario is yours. You close the deal, you make money. What about them? So while following up, remember the frequency. Your frequency really determines how valuable you are as a sales professional. So once a week or maximum twice a week should be the ideal case scenario if you are following up with your buyer or prospect. Thirdly, always prefer face-to-face follow-up than call follow-ups or message follow-ups. And I tell you why I constantly talk about this to everyone in my team as well. I truly believe that face-to-face follow-ups make a very cohesive and very personalized interaction. When you're following up with someone face-to-face, the ultimate objective of the meeting is not just to tell them, well, sir, what have you decided? The the meeting can lead to n number of consequences. It can lead to new prospects, references. It can lead to some other information that might help you to become a better sales professional and maybe cater your client in the best possible manner. So if you're someone who can give a call to your prospect or to your buyer and convince him or her that if we can meet according to your convenience near your place for let's say 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and because there is something relevant and important I wanted to share that might help you in moving ahead with this deal. If you can do this, it will take you at least 7 to 8 ladders above everyone else in the market because everyone is just busy calling, messaging. So, ma'am, what have you decided? Sir, what have you decided? Sir, what are you up to? Sir, when can we move ahead? This is the normal follow up from everyone else in the market. The only way to differentiate yourself from the market is doing something different. And this is how you can do it. Fix a meeting. Your objective should be to follow with your client face to face. If you can do that, you'll always be in a position where you can delegate, where you can, give a direction to the entire deal that is taking place. So avoid a lot of messages, a lot of calls, try to fix a meeting and share all the relevant information or whatever you have to do face to face. That builds a very strong bond between the buyer and the sales professional. So desperation is probably the number one enemy. Avoid it. Secondly is the frequency of follow-ups. 1 or 2 is the most ideal case scenario. To not exceed 6 follow-ups, 7 follow-ups is a big turnoff for any prospect buyer. Third is face-to-face follow-ups is always better than follow-ups with messages, with calls. In my experience, if you ask, I sell real estate. I sell something that is basically a dream for a lot of people. I sell houses, I sell office spaces, I sell shops, I sell land. These things are not something that I can just give a call and say, well, what have you decided? Nobody can decide in a day that I'm going to close a deal. Nobody will be in a position to say, yes, I'm going to buy a 4 CR apartment today. It takes time. And the deal, the closing or the closure is determined by the number of time you meet your buyer and you build a bond so that you induce credibility and trust, defines how well the deal will proceed in the future. So face-to-face follow always better than messages and calls. Also, something that I have learned in last 7.5 years or 8 years is, again, going back to the same first point, desperation. Do not ever let that desperation of your career get into the deal. I know as a sales professional, we all are struggling. We all want to close more deals. We all want to make more money. There is huge pressure from the organization, leaders, management. But that should be kept just to you. It shouldn't be visible to your buyer, because desperation is a very big turnoff. Your buyer should never feel that he or she is the only prospect that is left in the deal.